Jai Hind everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel which is Explore Yourselves, Banking and General Knowledge etc. From Mailroom to Corner Office, a Banker's Journey by Dr. R. Srinivasan. Cover page of the book. Today, that is 12th August 2025, I am sharing episode number 17. YouTube link of earlier episodes, this is episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, episode 4. The chapter Allahabad Bank, Kolkata is continuing. During the turbulent time of the strike and thereafter, I had the support of the General Secretary of AIBA, Comrade Tarakeshwar Chakraborty, and Mr. Shanti Sengupta of Bank of India, who was heading the Bank of India Officers Association. While they did not justify the manner in which I took action against Dayal Das Khanna, but they were able to understand my limited options. When the strike was over, I claimed reimbursement of expenses incurred for getting a new pair of spectacles, Rs 184. The government promptly declined my claim, quoting rules. I went to the minister concerned and argued that this was an extraordinary case where, in the course of discharging my duties and in circumstances entirely unique, instead of appreciating my special efforts, the government was quoting rules. The minister agreed with me and immediately ordered that as a special case the amount should be paid to me. Perhaps this is the only incident of when rules were bent for a good cause. In Allahabad Bank, representatives of both award staff and officers staff were nominated to the board of directors. On the days of the board meetings, these representatives will attend the board meetings and spend the rest of the day in the head office prompting their union activities. One day after the board meeting, I found Mr. Bhupesh Sarkar, a veteran trade union leader on the board, was still around. I called him and told him that after the board meeting was over, he would cease to be the director and so he had to go back to his seat. He grudgingly accepted my advice and left. From that point onwards, he maintained his dignity as a director and earned my special respect. People and other staff who watched this happen in public view admired my stand. On a subsequent visit to Delhi, I orally reported the developments to the finance minister, but when I called on the finance secretary, Sri Pradeep Krishnan Kaul, he reprimanded me for keeping him in the dark. He said that he had to answer the parliament and faced embarrassment if he was not well informed. I explained the background. Although he was pacified, he said that he was going to issue a circular that no bank chairman could meet the FM without his knowledge. I know it was a threat that would be difficult to implement. Sri P.K. Kaul was one of the best bureaucrats of our country, and he brought he brought honor to the several positions that he held during his life. He was Chief Controller of Exports and Imports, Commerce Secretary, Finance Secretary, Defense Secretary, Cabinet Secretary, and finally India's Ambassador to the USA. My second son Srikant, who lives in the USA, was granted 5 minutes to meet him in Washington. Instead, the meeting lasted for nearly 40 minutes. Sri Kaul retired after a glorious service, and when I also retired, we happened to sit side by side on the board of a reputed public limited company. He was always full of warmth and affection for me. Unfortunately, he too is no more. A very important event happened during my chairmanship of Allahabad Bank, and because of the importance of this, I am making a departure from the main course of writing about my banking experiences and devoting this special write-up. This event relates to what happened during the year 1983, and the subject matter was the import of mutton tallow. I do not know how many of the readers can recall those days and the situation that prevailed in the country in the wake of the controversy about the illegal import of mutton tallow. For background information, let me reproduce below the relevant news item of those days. Our policy is very clear. We never allowed the import of beef tallow, nor will we allow it in the future. Prime Minister Indira Gandhi in Ajmer, November 3. The Commerce Minister must assure us that the stocks of tallow will be seized and destroyed. Otherwise, millions of puris and chapatis will continue to be eaten by people not knowing that it is beef tallow. Karan Singh, MP, in the Lok Sabha, September 3. We will fight the elections on the issue of beef tallow. Resolutions of the National Democratic Alliance, October 26. Initial arrests. Obviously, men like Singh were basing their opinion with an utter disregard for the facts. The tallow issue, blown out of all proportion, started in July when the Punjab police seized tins of tallow from the premises of the Bhatinda Chemicals and Vanaspati Works in Bhatinda, Punjab, and arrested proprietor D.D. Mittal under the National Security Act, along with Vinod Kumar Jain, a politically well-connected managing director of Jain Sudh Vanaspati Private Limited, to whom the tallow was ultimately traced. India Today, October 15. Now read on. No one will be able to see any connection between the above news items and my chairmanship of Allahabad Bank. In fact, I could not either. What happened was this: one night around 9 pm, I was returning home from a visit to Delhi. When my car entered the compound and I got out, and my wife called out to say not to send the driver home for the day. She said that during the day there were repeated calls from the Prime Minister office in Delhi asking me to go back and there early the next morning and meet the Prime Minister, Srimati Indira Gandhi. My wife said that my office had obtained a ticket for the next morning flight to the Delhi for this purpose. It was very thoughtful of the office to have done that. Once I arrived in Delhi airport, I drove straight to the PM's house. It was there that I learnt about the opposition party gunning for the PM for allowing the import of beef tallow, which the PM and her team were stoutly denying. I first called on Rajiv Gandhi, who was using the room next to his mother's. After the untimely death of his younger brother Sanjay, Rajiv was helping his mother in all her activities. I was shown some papers connected with the import of mutton tallow and specifically asked as to how I was involved in this. I said I was not in any way connected. Thereafter, I was shown a letter from the chairman of New Bank of India in which he had written to the Prime Minister's office that the import of the mutton tallow was permitted by me when I was the chairman of that bank. The permission was supposed to have been given by me by granting a letter of credit facility to a company called Jain Sudh Vanaspati Limited, New Delhi, of which one Mr. Vinod Jain was the managing director. As a supporting evidence, the bank had also sent a copy of the letter of sanction for the LC facility. I was stunned. I could not collect my thoughts. It was just baffling. It took me some time to gather myself and analyze the situation. Slowly it dawned on me that my successors in the bank were trying to shift the blame on me and escape their involvement. From the news items cited above, it could be seen that this matter of import of mutton, beef tallow has become a national issue as it was suspected that the importers were mixing the imported tallow with the Banaspati manufactured in India and were making huge profit. Jain Sudh Banaspati was one among the importers. See the irony. They called themselves Sudh, which to non-Hindi speakers means pure. Opposition parties were willing to make this an election issue and fight Indira Gandhi. By constant propaganda and continuous verbal attack, They were making the life of the Prime Minister very miserable. Just imagine how a PM is responsible for a bank permitting the import of mutton tallow by one of their clients who did so in an improper manner. Sensing the seriousness of the situation, I asked Rajiv ji whether it would help his mother if I confessed that the permission for opening the LC was granted by me and that the PM had nothing to do with my decision. He categorically said, "No, I do not want you to own anything that you have not done. I want to know only the truth, and you should prove beyond doubt that what you say is the truth." I suddenly noticed that the letter sanctioning the LC facility was dated during the time I was the CMD, but it was on a letterhead with the new emblem of the bank that was introduced much later than the date of the said letter. Obviously, it was forged. The new emblem came into existence at the beginning of 1982. The letter was dated prior to that, and the import was made much later, by which time I was no longer with the bank, with that bank. Rajiv Gandhi and his friend Mr. Vijay Dhar, who was also there, were fully convinced that I was telling the truth. Vijay Dhar is son of a famous Kashmiri leader, Durga Prasad Dhar. They asked me to prepare a record of these details, and there and then I prepared a handwritten note. Rajiv read it carefully and underlined some sentences with a highlighter. He asked me to wait and went into his mother's room. After a few minutes, he came back and told me that I could go. I learnt a little later that the PM was furious after reading my note and instructed that the services of the then chairman, name withheld, of NBI, who wrote the letters mentioned above, should be terminated forthwith. In a few days after the formalities were observed, action as instructed was taken and that chairman was sacked. I was saved. It might be recalled that writing about the introduction of the new emblem of the New Bank of India, I had mentioned that it played a crucial role in upholding my righteousness. This was the instance I was referring to when I mentioned that this is a serious matter and bankers, both seniors and juniors, should read about it and understand the background by searching on the internet. If anyone has faced this type of situation and come out unblemished, I would like to offer my most sincere congratulations and request that he or she write about it for the benefit of the present generations of bankers. I have a feeling that this is perhaps a very unique case that threatened my life, and just by the grace of God, the direction of the wind changed and saved me from that disaster. It took, it took a most unexpected turn and hit a different quarter, which resulted in the uprooting of the gang of people who conspired to end my career. Whom else can I think has saved me except the hand of God and the gentleman that was Rajiv Gandhi? Cleaning up the administration, improving discipline, increasing productivity, and expanding the bank's business all required simultaneous attention. The government's directive to removing dead wood, people classified as non-performing assets, or it might be more realistic to call them liabilities, came in very handy in my efforts. We had to manage the bank with the same human resources we had. We only had the option of encouraging good workers and getting rid of non-performers. We had a general manager, name withheld, at the time, who was always critical of the bank and never did any positive work. I had to neutralize him, and the only way was to see that he was not given any work. No one in the bank had a good word about him. I therefore decided that the other general manager the bank had to was given more responsibilities. Simultaneously, all work requiring CMD's attention or decision were directed to be sent to him directly bypassing the non-cooperating GM. No work was assigned to him, but he never grumbled about it. He did not even care to meet me and ask why he had nothing to do. He was immensely satisfied to come to office on time and leave on time. He was regular in reading the Economic Times during his working day. Finding that he was not the least bothered about his lack of work, I decided to shift his room from the bank's head office to a building on India Exchange Place. After a couple of months, sensing that he too would be compulsorily retired, he took voluntary retirement and became a pensioner. He belonged to that former category of employees of Allahabad Bank before nationalization and hence was eligible for pension as per the bank's policy. Board meetings were used to discuss policy issues, seeking the guidance of directors for new avenues of business and administrative reforms, etc. The members of the board were very helpful. No meeting went beyond the lunchtime. I take pride in saying that during all the nearly 11 years of my chairmanship of three different banks, the scheduling of board meetings were followed without even a single exception. Meetings started at 10 a.m. and were over before lunch. We would eat at the bank and not at five-star hotels. I made it a practice to invite one or two guests at each of these lunches. They could either be important people from the city or government officials or valued clients of the bank. Even important borrowers were among the guests so that the members of the board could actually see and interact with the person running the borrowing industry. This also greatly helped in the directors' understanding of the bank's clients and their business, in addition to going through their proposals for loans and advances. I encouraged the heads of departments to come before the board and explain their proposals. That way, the officers were able to mingle with the directors and vice versa. Officers gained experience of board meetings, and that was a good training ground for future leadership. I introduced the practice of spending the first half an hour or more of the meeting to inform the board of developments in the bank that had taken place from the time of the previous meeting and the present one. I volunteered to inform them about my activities as chairman. I never tried to hide any of my travel details, who I met, for what purpose, and with what results. I made them feel that I was accountable to them, and they were very happy about this practice. I introduced a system of all executives up to the level of AGM and above to meet at 9:30 am on all Wednesdays. These meetings lasted for about an hour. All developments during the previous 7 days and likely events during the following 7 days were discussed frankly. This made everyone aware of the happenings in the bank. It also made the executives feel like one team. On those Wednesdays when I was not present, my next man presided over these meetings. Executives would inform the meeting about the travel plans, and this resulted in avoiding two executives going to the same place on the same day. Once this was known, one of them would drop out and ask the other to handle this business also, and it resulted in cutting down wasteful travel expenses. Simple minutes of these meetings were recorded and circulated. When I moved over to Bank of India, considering the size and magnitude of the place, such meetings were held at 9:30 am on all working days. On those days, when I was away from headquarters, the senior-most executive like ED or the senior general manager would hold the meeting. The banking industry follows an unwritten convention that the government-owned banks consult with them before finalizing the annual accounts and allocations. During such informal consultations, decisions are taken about the write-offs, the provisions to be made, and the quantum of dividend to be paid to the government who own the banks. When the first balance sheet of Allahabad Bank after I took over was being finalized, I did not do any of these. I went by the advice of the statutory auditors and in consultations with the government nominee on the board decided not to give any dividend to the government but plug back a portion of the profit into the general reserves of the bank. When I went to Delhi thereafter, Dr. Bimal Jalan, the then banking secretary, mildly reprimanded me that what I did was not proper. I tried to explain to him that Allahabad Bank needed capital strengthening and that was the reason for my not paying dividend. Furthermore, when the bank was asking the government to contribute for the capital, I felt that giving dividend back to them was running counter to this idea. But Dr. Jalan, one of the ablest bureaucrats who later became the governor of RBI, guided me to the right way of doing things as CMD of a government-owned bank. What I felt great about him was that instead of simply ticking me off, he took the trouble of guiding me and showing the correct approach on such issues. I am grateful to this illustrious person at all times. Incidentally, Dr. Jalan hails from Kolkata, from one of the city's very illustrious families. His brother, Dr. Kamal Jalan, is a highly successful gastroenterologist of international fame. His paternal uncle is a successful legal practitioner and a well-known stage actor. Although I have been doing things that were very much in the interest of the bank, there were murmurs about my being too strict in weeding out a lot of the deadwood and in tackling willful and undisciplined borrowers. Vested interest made some 20 MPs petition VP Singh, then Finance Minister, seeking that either I should be removed or not given an extension in service when my term was coming to close. So after calling for my files and going through the reports, VP Singh called those MPs to his office, gave them my file and asked them to sit at the far corner table in his room and go through the reports and then come to him to discuss their demands. At the end of an hour of deliberations, those MPs went to VP Singh and said that if such an honest and fearless officer was not going to be encouraged, the government would be doing a wrong thing. They withdrew their earlier complaint and recommended that I be given an extension. I came to know of this development from what was told to me by one of the MPs who made the FM. Needless for me to add that Dr. Jalan had his own say in the matter because he was the boss of all bankers. I must also narrate an incident that happened at the RBI, Bombay, when a deputy governor had called a meeting of the executives of Allahabad Bank, including me, to discuss the RBI inspection report and the bank's reply to it. Periodically, Reserve Bank of India conducts an inspection of banks. They visit the head office and some selected branches and do a thorough inspection of the entire working of the institution. They then prepare a detailed report of their findings, and before submitting it to their office, they discuss their findings with the chairman of the bank in question. Subsequently, when the report reaches their office, it is carefully studied, and after proper editing, it is sent to the bank for its comments and a report on the action taken on the inspection report. When this is also completed, a meeting is called by the deputy governor in charge of banking operations, which is attended by the chairman and other officers of the bank who want to be represented at that meeting. Similarly, after the first such inspection of Allahabad Bank was concluded since my taking over as CMD, a meeting was called by the deputy governor. At this, the report and our replies were thoroughly discussed. Before we took leave of the meeting, the deputy governor asked me whether it was a fact that I had been very strict with the staff, that I have been indiscriminately transferring staff and retiring employees before they reached 60 years of age, and that I was tough on difficult borrowers, etc. I replied in the affirmative and added that I was going by the rules and there was not even a single instance of any personal interest or vendetta. He remarked, Reserve Bank does not appreciate and would not countenance such actions. I felt humiliated to be told this in the presence of my executives such as the GM, DGM and AGMs, and I was struck dumb for a few moments. Later I felt that if this situation was allowed to pass without a response from me, I would not get any respect from the staff of the bank when I returned to Kolkata. Discussions held in the presence of so many officers cannot remain a secret. Therefore, I made bold to reply to the deputy governor and said, Sir, the government and RBI have, in their own wisdom, considered me suitable for this job and have appointed me. I will do my job with all sincerity. I will continue my efforts to improve the working of the bank, and if within the next 6 months I do not find any improvement in the bank, I would voluntarily come to you and hand over my resignation. Until then, may I request that I be allowed to work without any interference, please. Do readers expect me to explain how my reply was a very polite but firm rebuff to the boss? I wish someone who was present at that meeting could describe how the facial expression of the deputy governor was upon hearing my reply. Thereafter, I had an uninterrupted freedom to run the bank smoothly and efficiently. My colleagues must have felt that their CMD was not a puppet for dancing to the tunes of the puppeteer. I may add an important and interesting note. The deputy governor was my predecessor in the Allahabad Bank and had many of his relatives, including his brother, working there to feed him stories that he liked to hear. I take pardonable pride to mention that National Institute of Bank Management, Pune, which is the pioneer in training bankers at senior levels, started conducting a special session in their training program called the Srinivasan effect in banking, drawing instances from my administration to explain to the participants how I had changed the culture and efficiency of the bank. A couple of months later, I got a call from the finance secretary asking me if I would be willing to be posted as CMD of Syndicate Bank, Manipal. I requested him to give me some time to think about the proposition. Within an hour, I again got a call. I did not take it and asked my PA to say that I had gone out. The problem was that I did not want to take that proposal. At the same time, if I declined it, the governor would not consider me for any other offer at any time thereafter. I did not know what to do, more so because I was told that PM Rajiv Gandhi wanted me to go to Syndicate Bank. Luckily for me, FM, who later became President of India and since retired, was in Kolkata. I rushed to him and sought his advice. He told me that I could decline the offer to move to Manipal and take over as CMD of Syndicate Bank. Accordingly, I called the finance secretary and conveyed my inability to accept his proposition. Soon thereafter, I went to Delhi, called on the PM, and submitted that I had declined the offer for a valid reason. I added that at Syndicate Bank there was one Mr. H.N. Rao, who was very much my senior as general manager. He was a chartered accountant from England and had been with the bank for a very long time. Unfortunately, he continued to get overlooked for promotions. I therefore felt that it would not be proper for me to accept the offer. The PM paused for a moment and remarked, "You are a strange person with some human values I appreciate." Subsequently, Mr. Rao became CMD of Syndicate Bank. I do not know if I really played any role in making this happen. Sometime in 1985-86, the post of chairman of Bank of India fell vacant, and I tried to see if I could get posted there. The FM, who was happy with my performance in Allahabad Bank, was favorably inclined. The late Tarakasar Tiwari, who was chairman of Industrial Reconstruction Bank with headquarters in Kolkata, was also desiring a change. I used to be a government nominee on the board of that bank. Mr. Tiwari was earlier in the Industrial Development Bank of India in Mumbai. He told me that he would be happy to take over at Allahabad Bank. He came to my house and saw the bank's chairman's residence and was very pleased with it. The ministry made its own noting suggesting that Tiwari should go to New Bank of India and I would go to BOI. But ultimately, some more powerful person in the government altered this, made Tiwari the CMD of BOI. This was done just by striking out of the word new from the bank meant for Tiwari and cancelling my name from the note. Tiwari was known for his skills and was able to maneuver this effectively. People of Bank of India who may recall the tenure of Mr. Tiwari and who are reading about this episode may know that Tiwari was a very shrewd person and know how to tactfully manage things. Hats up to him. Unfortunately, God snatched him within a short time and once again the post of Bank of India's chairman fell vacant. I was again in that fray, but this time successfully. That, however, is a separate story. By this time, around 1986, Allahabad Bank had a new executive director, Mr. Wadha. Shortly after taking over as executive director, ED, he started his manipulations. He tried to appease the staff and the union just to gain their support. In any bank, the executive in charge of personnel can be very positive or negative as is owned. I found that if I had allowed things to go his way, he could spoil all the good things I had done and the bank would once again revert to its old days of nepotism and tardiness. I therefore decided to take away staff actions from the ED and issued orders that all staff matters will go to me directly from the general manager in charge. Aided by this order, Mr. Wada took a copy of the office order and complained to the government about its not being allowed to handle staff matters. Shortly thereafter, there was a meeting of all bank chairmen and EDs called by VP Singh as FM. Before the agenda of this the meeting was taken up, Dr. Bimal Jalam said in his introductory remarks that he was unhappy to find that in certain banks the CMD and ED were not functioning in unison, and there were instances when EDs tried to defy the CMD. He made it clear that the government did not appreciate this. He added that in any bank the CMD is the boss and an ED is only the ED, and it is second to the CMD. It is the CMD's prerogative to allocate work to the ED, and the government will not interfere in that authority of the CMD. This set at rest any uncertainty in the mind of my own ED. As all of us know, union activities were always strong in West Bengal, more so with a communist party in the saddle of power in the state at that time. The difference, however, was that union leaders in West Bengal always behaved more responsibly and reasonably, and with respect to the management. They demanded their rights and fought for them, but as long as the management was fair and responsive to their demands, there would be no major conflicts. There were and still are three banks with headquarters in Kolkata: Allahabad Bank, United Commercial Bank, and United Bank of India. It was rare that the three chairmen met and exchanged views among themselves. The chairman of UCO Bank, as it is now called, was among the weakest, and the other chairman of UBI was always at loggerheads with the union in his bank. Luckily, I had created a cordial atmosphere over the years and had good understanding with the union in Allahabad Bank. However, certain actions taken in the other two banks had reaction in my bank as well. One such was the unilateral decision taken by UCO to take on the bank's roles all the temporary workers in their canteen. Similar demands were also made in my bank. By remaining bank, I did not succumb to this unjustified demand, and in due course it was withdrawn. Before the HO of the bank moved into the present building, 2 Netaji Subhas Road, Kolkata 70001, it used to be based at 14 and 15 India Exchange Place, and one of them was in bank's own building. The Kolkata main branch was functioning from one of the two buildings. By chance, I came to find that in our building there were as many as 20 families of the subordinate staff living there. They had been there for some years with no one to ask them how they came to occupy that place. They were not paying any rent or electricity or water charges. Everything was free for them. They set up their families, enlarged them, and went on doing so for several years. I utilized the services of Mr. Shankar Sen, who was in charge of bank premises, and almost overnight I got all the families vacated. It was a great success to have achieved this without any big fight or disturbance. I was very happy that the capabilities of Shankar Sen in getting this done. He was a go-getter, and he released the chairman's special attention and support. Unfortunately, he overstepped his limits. I had sent him to Lucknow to finalize a lease for an alternate premises, which also he accomplished in good time, but I came in possession of evidence to show that in the process he had obtained illegal gratification by using my name. I could not tolerate that. Within a few days of his return, I made him confess to his wrongdoing, and as a punishment, I terminated his services after due process. Employees were surprised that I could do away with a senior officer who was considered to be close to me, but they appreciated my fairness in the matter. Another opportunity came to me to prove my usefulness to RBI. The time was when agitation by the unions against computerization and mechanization was high. RBI could not do anything. They had imported huge machines worth some crores of rupees but could not even move them into their building as the union would not allow them to do so. The huge consignment of machinery was lying on the road for months just across from the RBI building, braving the sun and rain. One of the bank's deputy governors, who subsequently became governor, was in the planning commission before becoming head of the Economic Advisory Council, and he was directly in charge of setting up the National Clearing House. He was much concerned that the project was getting delayed due to the attitude of the unions. Eventually, the deputy governor asked me to help find an amicable solution to the impasse. By private negotiations with the union of RBI and its important officials and some mutual understanding, I achieved the desired results. Thereafter, RBI was able to commence operations of their national clearing house in Kolkata. During my tenure as chairman of Allahabad Bank, I had witnessed the visits of some parliamentary committees to the bank. Whenever such committees came to Kolkata, they used to visit all the three banks with head office there. But one of the banks used to take care of the logistics and look after the members of parliament, their arrival, their stay, and their departure. It was a tough task because of the number of parliamentarians and the accompanying officials. Sometimes their demands used to be difficult, and this was exacerbated when the government issued instructions that the comfort of the visiting dignitaries was the responsibility of the host bank. The government made it more difficult by stipulating that gifts given to the members of the visiting group of parliamentarians and the official should not exceed Rs 50 per head. Another stipulation was that they should not be put up in five-star hotels. Luckily, these stipulations were strictly observed in their uniform violation, with the willing and silent cooperation of the visitors and the government turning a blind eye. I remember the visit of committee led by a very senior MP as chairman of the Estimates Committee. The Public Accounts Committee and Estimates Committee of MPs were the most powerful of all the committees. Before they arrived, we were specifically told that members would like to be accommodated in the only five-star hotel then in Kolkata, the Oberoi Grand. We had also received information on the personal preferences of the chairman of the committee. We are told that we was not used to the western type commode in the hotel room and instructed to make arrangements and see that in his room the commode should be Indian type. Furthermore, we are told that gentleman was used to drinking pure cow's milk brought straight from the site where the cow was milked. The milk should not be heated as the leader was used to drink it fresh. With a special effort, we used our good offices with the hotel authorities and got the bathroom facilities duly altered overnight. We are also able to provide fresh milk at 5 a.m. so that the leader was not inconvenienced. Needless to say, we earned the appreciations of the committee by doing this. We only knew how greatly relieved we were when the committee went back fully satisfied. Some members surprised us by saying that they forgot to bring their toothpaste and brush or they had left their chappals at home. All these things were dealt with in good time by our officers who were allotted to each of them to be at their disposal. Don't ask how these expenses were accounted for in the books of the bank. I would plead ignorance. I will leave such questions to experts in that particular area of banking. We had another committee visiting Allahabad Bank. The leader, a firebrand MP from Kolkata, who held up in Delhi. I had very good rapport with the said MP. She had once visited my house and enjoyed a South Indian breakfast. At my request and with a view to enable the leader to come from Delhi and have the meeting, the committee agreed to meet the bank officials at a special arena arranged at the airport itself. The leader would come from Delhi, meet the bank, conduct the visit, and immediately return to Delhi. The said MP has since become a very popular Chief Minister of West Bengal. As soon as the meeting commenced, the leader said that the chairman of the bank was well known for his ability to have good administration. She added that as leader, she had personal knowledge of this administration and that therefore there need not be any detailed questions and answers. This was happily agreed to by other members and the meeting was over in less than an hour. Those MPs who wanted to go around the city were taken care of while the leader returned to Delhi. By virtue of my seniority among the three chairmen based in Kolkata, I became the chairman of IBA's local Kolkata chapter. At that time, I was deputy chairman of IBA at all India level. During that period, the union minister in charge of banking was Sri Janardhan Pujari. He was a staunch congressman and very loyal to the Gandhis. He would never leave his office until he is told that his boss, the PM and the FM, have left for the day. He became very popular among the people who got loans from the loan melas and became a messiah for the poor and fully implemented the loans under DIR differential rate of interest scheme. Banks were asked to lend a particular percentage of their priority sector lending under this scheme. Interest as low as 4% per annum was to be charged on such loans. Bankers throughout the country were directed to organize loan melas where the minister would personally hand over checks for the loan amount to the beneficiaries. Sometime a loan in the form of kind used to be given. This became a rage in those days. Bankers were feeling the pressure to bring eligible borrowers, organize the melas to suit the convenience of the minister and get adequate publicity for the function, and so on. Bankers slightly modified the nomenclature of the DIR loans. They started calling it as "don't insist on repayment." It was a fact that several such loans would not get repaid. Mr. Pujari came to Kolkata for such an activity. In addition, he also wanted to talk to the bank employees and asked me to arrange a meeting. I had organized it in Netaji Indoor Stadium in Kolkata, where on that evening there were nearly 6,000 bank employees assembled. As usual, the minister exhorted the bank employees to help the poor and actively participate in the loan melas, etc. When my turn came to talk, I frankly and vehemently opposed the idea of these loan melas, where there is no time for the bankers even to verify the genuineness of the application for loans. While I supported the idea of the helping the poor, I said that it was also the banker's duty to protect the money entrusted to the bank and see that it was properly utilized. I said that I would faithfully obey the government's directive but would not blindly follow the dictates of whimsical politicians. I pleaded that the bankers should have a right to deny loans to anyone found unfit to receive one. I must say that I carried the day with me. People who attended the meeting may recall it, or perhaps it was the thunderous applause I got made me think like that. While this was going on, let me share another incident that happened in Haryana. One day the Congress party had its loan mela in a town in Haryana. The very next day, the alternate party in Haryana, controlled by Chaudhry Devilal, father of Chautala, held their loan mela at the same venue and even using the same platform. Here again the poor bankers were forced to perform the rites. The most important aspect of the second day's mela was that Devilal would roar and tell his audiences, "See, yesterday the Congress wallahs came and gave you loans at 4% interest rate. That means you have to return the loan along with interest. I tell you, vote for me, and I assure you need not repay the loan you have taken from the Congress organized melas." As you can see, the loan melas had degenerated to that level. Kolkata also provided me many opportunities to meet the then finance minister, now the president of India. In spite of the fact that the FM belonged to that part of the country, he never asked me to do anything out of the way and always encouraged me to do the right thing. His hometown was very close to Santiniketan in a place called Bolpur. There was an occasion for me to travel there along with him as part of the entourage and stay in Santiniketan. The place was really so serene to justify its name. I went there by car with my family and stayed overnight. En route, we had to pass through some thick forest areas considered unsafe as they were infested with dacoits. The general advice given to motorists was not to stop when confronted with dacoits but simply run over them. The next morning, when we woke up in Santiniketan, I saw the famous actor Nasruddin Shah doing physical exercise with a skipping rope. I remember seeing a signboard there reading, "The feet of the child should feel the kiss of Mother Earth." This is a quotation from Rabindranath Tagore, urging people not to use footwear within the precincts of Santiniketan. With, with this last reflection, I close writing about my experiences in Allahabad Bank and will commence writing about my years with Bank of India. The chapter Allahabad Bank Kolkata is completed. The next chapter will be Bank of India Mumbai. Thank you very much for your patience. Request for like, subscribe and share.